Quick question before you get started. Who do you think was the best ever developer of Amiga games? Well, I mean, there's a pretty obvious answer to that one, really, isn't it? Because there was only one developer who had a consistent quality throughout all of their games. Tiertex. Hello everybody, welcome to the Re-Review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UK Jane Zoidberg, and I've always considered the 16-bit era to be the golden age of gaming. While both the Mega Drive and SNES have their staunch defenders, for me it's always been the Amiga that epitomised the period between the late 80s and mid-90s. Many of what I consider to be my favourite games of all time came out during this time, and I still really enjoy playing them today. In this series, I'm looking back at games that came out on the Amiga, seeing what the critical consensus was for each one of them, and then replaying them again through today's eyes. Today's episode is one that's been a long time coming, as I finally get to talk about one of the Amiga's most infamous teams. So join me as I replay the Chaos Engine, which was developed by the Bitmap brothers and published by Renegade Software in 1993. Hey, has anybody told you about the VIP memberships that we do right here on the channel? Not only will you get early access to most of the videos that we post, you'll also get exclusive access to full reruns of any live streams that we do, plus exclusive membership content. You'll even get one of these little badges that you can put on your name whenever you comment on anything, just to show people how long you've been a member for. If that sounds like something that might be of interest to you, it's only £1.99 a month, and you can find full details of how you can become a member in the video description, or just click the link on screen right now. You'll even get to help us choose what games we cover in future episodes of both the Re-Review and Retro Game Super Leagues, so why not check it out? For now though, let's get back to the video. Back in December of 2022, shortly after I started making episodes of the Re-Review, I decided to conduct an investigation to try and find out who was the best developer of Amiga games. I took over 30 development teams, had a look at all the games that they produced, and then worked out the average review scores based on all the reviews that I could find for them. I then published the results in a video that you can still find right here on the channel. I'll make sure that I put a link to that in the description. Spoilers, top of that list was the Bitmap brothers. If you played games on the Amiga or Atari ST, then they are undoubtedly a team that need no introduction. They were founded in 1987 by Mike Montgomery, Eric Matthews and Steve Kelly. From the moment they arrived, they had an aura about them that was instantly exciting, dressing like rock stars in magazine profiles and mostly letting their games do the talking. And what games they were! As calling cards go, Xenon was a clear statement of intent from the team, and following it up less than 6 months later with Speedball cemented them as a team to watch. Both games featured all the hallmarks for which the team would become known: challenging gameplay, cutting-edge visuals and a pulsating soundtrack. Xenon 2 Mega Blast, released in 1989, reaffirmed their status by including the song Mega Blast Hip Hop on Precinct 13 by Bomb the Bass as the game's theme music. A close relationship with Martin Heath of Rhythm King Records would also provide theme music from a number of their subsequent releases. Nation 12 provided the music for both Speedball 2 and Gods, whereas Magic Pockets got a memorable intro sequence accompanied by the music of Betty Boo. Perhaps more importantly though, the relationship with Heath would end up leading to the formation of Renegade Software. After growing frustrated with publisher Mirrorsoft, they initially set up the company as a means to self-publish their own games, and indeed Renegade's first release was the Bitmap's own Gods in 1991. They would, however, also go on to publish games by Sensible Software, Graphgold and Terramark, among others. Their stated goal was to give all developers more artistic freedom and more recognition. What's most impressive about the output of the Bitmap brothers, for me at least, is the sheer number of genres that they succeeded at. Cadaver is a brilliantly atmospheric action-adventure with some superb isometric visuals. Gods is a secret-packed, infinitely replayable action platform game, and Speedball 2 might just be the best futuristic sports game ever made. In latter years, they even made the jump to real-time strategy games on the PC with both Z and World War II Frontline Command. In my experience, their catalogue of games has never made the jump to consoles particularly well. Compare the SNES and Mega Drive versions of Xenon 2 and Gods to their Amiga originals, and something clearly got lost in the translation. The Chaos Engine, however, is probably the one that survived the translation intact. Released in 1993, the Chaos engine, retitled Soldiers of Fortune for the US market, is a steampunk-inspired overhead shooter that stands out for a number of reasons. The 6 brilliantly realised characters that you could choose to play as for starters, but also the fact that there would always be 2 of them on screen, even if you were playing solo. This was thanks to some complex AI routines that the developers came up with while watching how playtesters approached the game. For the inevitable sequel, rather than simply make more of the same, inspiration came from a very unlikely source. The Spy vs Spy games had been a huge hit on 8-bit machines and featured 2 players competing against each other to finish objectives before the other whilst also trying to sabotage their opponent. And this is exactly what you got with the Chaos engine too. This change of approach led to a very mixed response from both critics and gamers, with some applauding its bold approach, while others expressed disappointment that this wasn't what they wanted. I feel that it was a game that was a bit ahead of its time, with some incredible highs, but also a number of unforgivable flaws. It's available to play on Antstream today, along with many other games by the team, if you fancy having a go for yourself. In 2019, the rights to the Bitmap Brothers catalogue of games were bought by Rebellion, the makers of the Sniper Elite series, and Montgomery has gone on to become one of the founders of Tower Studios alongside Sensible Software's John Hare. Now let's go back and check out what the gaming press had to say about the Chaos engine when it first released. Reviews of the Chaos engine started to appear in Amiga magazines in early 1993, with surprisingly little fanfare, although the reception, as you'd probably expect, was strong. The highest score that it received came in the March issue of Amiga Action. It was reviewed by fellow GamesX alumni Jason Spiller, who was the Southern News editor when I wrote for the magazine, and he called the game superb, awarding it 92% and an Action Accolade Award. Although the second opinion from the magazine's deputy editor Nick Merritt said that he thought the game lacked variety. Ben Stiles from Amiga Computing gave it 90% in their April issue and said that he thought that the graphics were pretty flawless. The same score was also given in the April issue of Amiga Format, where reviewer Andy Nuttall said that the game was phenomenally good and one of the best shooters ever released for the Amiga. Even the usually hard to please Stuart Campbell was impressed. In his review that appeared in the February issue of Amiga Power, he stated that it was probably the most atmospheric game that he had played for over a year, and a spectacular return to form for the Bitmap Brothers. He awarded it 89%. The lowest scores came from the One Amiga and CU Amiga, who awarded it scores of 85% and 81% respectively. The main criticisms were the frustration that they felt with the 2-player mode and the fact that it was little more than Gauntlet for the 90s. The average critic score in 1993 was a very impressive 87.8%. Looking at the Lemon Amiga website today, you'll see that the user score is 8.63 out of 10 from over 300 reviews. Now though, let's load the game up again. It's time for the playtest. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by playing the original A500 version. So that's what this is. This is the 32 colour original release from 1993. And so you get to choose which one of the mercenaries that you want. I'm going to choose the Navi for myself, and then the gentleman for the sub character. A lot of effort was put into making sure that the support character AI actually played the game like a human player would. Apparently the developers observed people playing it in 2-player mode and programmed the AI accordingly. I think the atmosphere of the visuals is second to none, really. Definitely a shout out to Dan Malone for his work with the Bitmap Brothers. He's always delivered. I think the AI of the second player definitely does behave like a second person would, because I do quite regularly get frustrated with the fact that they run off and pick up my collectibles that I wanted. I do love the Victorian aesthetic to all the menu screens. I think they're some of the best that the Bitmap Brothers ever did. Basically, the objective to each level is to find all the nodes and activate them and get to the end. There is no time limit, so you don't actually have to do it quickly. I think when I first played this in '93, I did actually feel disappointed in the soundtrack because it didn't quite meet up to the usual high standards that I expected from the Bitmap Brothers. I mean, you compare what you get here with
the likes of Speedball 2 or Xenon 2, or even Gods. It's not quite got the same oomph to the audios that those games have. I think the reason that I usually pick the Gentleman as my secondary character is because he has an auto map that you can use as your special power. So if you swap and use it, you get a little map of the surrounding area. Which, if you're the type of person who quite regularly gets lost in these types of games, that will be invaluable to you. And so this is where the game will now throw me into the shop, where I can boost all my extra skills, health, and speed. Or I can just do them all at once, which is what I'll do there. I will then be able to buy myself a weapon power-up. It is possible to learn the patterns to the enemies, because they do always appear in the same place. And it's actually imperative that you do so if you want to succeed. I think many of the issues that I have with this game are the types of nitpicks that you have with games that you really like. You start to notice little things that just get on your nerves. So the way that it's impossible to avoid enemy fire sometimes, the way that the collectibles don't stay on screen for long enough to allow you to actually pick them up. That kind of thing. One more hit and I'm going to be dead. Although I did just get an extra life, so it's not going to be too bad. World complete. Oh, wow. And this is the point where my biggest gripe with the game comes in, because you get level codes, as you can see on screen now, but you only get them at the end of each world. And I think the game would have benefited greatly from having them at the end of each level instead. Oh no, game over. But what I will do here is I will switch to the A1200 version with its increased number of colours, which brings it more in line to what the SNES and Mega Drive versions look like. Although I think that the increased number of colours actually doesn't do the game any favours. I find the original A500 version to be much more atmospheric. But this is the version of the game that you get pre-installed on the A500 Mini. One of the major bonuses that you get by actually playing this version of the game is the ability to quick save. So at any point, I can press the start button and save my game. I think the 6 different mercenaries that you can play as have just enough differences in their personality to really add to the replayability of the game as well. I mean there's obviously the different special abilities that they have, but some of them wield more powerful weapons and can run slightly quicker than others as well. So they really do change how you approach the game in some instances. I mean, there are some secret areas on some of these early levels that I have never really got to. So if there's anybody who is watching this video who can actually help me out with any of that, then please do feel free to let me know in the comments. So as you can see, I did make use of the save game option the last time I played this. So by the time you get to this world, the levels really do start to have multiple routes through them. So if you find one route that you're not particularly good and particularly happy with, you can always try a different one. No. Thank God I got an extra life. Oh, no way. Game over. Right, so I think we're going to leave things there and move on to the final summary and the next part of the video.
In an interview in Retrogaming magazine, Mike Montgomery admitted that maybe their games were a little bit too hard, but that they simply made the games that they themselves wanted to play. I found that the level of difficulty in the Chaos engine is probably the one thing that stops it from being their greatest achievement. I got increasingly frustrated having to play through the same few levels over and over again every time I restarted the game. This could have been mitigated by a fairer password system that gave out passwords after every level rather than every 4 levels. Thankfully, you can get round this password system if you're playing it on the 800 Mini, where it is one of the games that comes built into the console, as that system has a save state system that you can use at any time. The graphics could well be the best thing that artist Dan Malone has ever done, in gaming at least. Each world has a unique look, and they're all packed with detail and brilliantly grotesque creatures. I do actually prefer the washed out look of the 32 colour original over the AGA version that came out the following year, although I am probably in the minority on that one. I also can't help being disappointed by the game's audio. While there's nothing especially wrong with Richard Joseph's score, it lacks the usual Bitmap's pizzazz that made games like Gods stand out so much. I know it's a small nitpick, but it's one that I felt needed mentioning. As far as the Super League is concerned, you can see how I would rank this game compared to other overhead shooters on the Amiga in a video elsewhere on the channel. I thought that for this video, I'd compare it directly with all the other games made by the Bitmap brothers, although I would actually recommend that you play all 10 of them. The Chaos Engine is still a fine game that hasn't aged at all. It's still well worth playing today, and thankfully there are many ways in which you can do so. An easy 9 out of 10 from me. Thank you for watching this re-review of the Chaos Engine. I can't believe it's taken me 65 episodes before I finally got to talk about the Bitmap brothers. It's probably because I wasn't lucky enough to review any of their games during my time on Games X and Amiga Action. I spent quite a while trying to decide which one of their games I should talk about first. I hope you think I made the right choice. Please let me know in the comments what you think of the Chaos Engine and what your favourite Bitmap brothers game is. Maybe even rank them yourself. If there are any Amiga games that you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of this series, please don't leave them in the comments as they might get lost. Instead, send them to me as an email to reviews@ukgamingnetwork.com. If you enjoy this series, please remember to give us a like and subscribe to show your support for the channel. And if this is your first episode, then why not check out the full playlist of the 64 other ones that should be on screen right about now. Next week, I'll be back to Retro Game Super Leagues with part 2 of my ranking of all games based on movies on the Amiga. The first part seems to have gone down quite well, so please make sure you come back and watch part 2. Until next time, happy retro gaming. Bye for now.